Hello again, awesomers. Your old buddy, Steve Simonson, and we're coming back today with another Founder Foundations mini-series episode. Today, we're going to talk about your geographic targeting. Now, this may, on the surface, seem very simple. And you say, well, gosh, Steve, I don't need any help on geographic targeting. I sell in, England, or I sell in the United Kingdom at large, or I sell in the United States. Or you may even say, I'm one of those cross-border guys and gals. I sell in all of the EU and the US and Canada, right? So I don't want you to get caught up in why the geography that you do now is relevant. I want to talk about the overall big picture of geography and how that is important to you. So firstly, we have to take into consideration, when you're building a brand, your trading zone, the area that you're selling in, is eminently important. And there are both tactical reasons why you need to make the selection carefully, and then strategic reasons why you need to make it carefully. So when we are all starting in business, particularly, let's just think of it as e-commerce, we say, you know what? I just need to sell something and I'm in this market, or I've determined that the United States is the biggest market, so I'm going to focus on that market. And so no matter where you're at, I've got many friends all across the world. There's a big bunch of great sellers in Estonia and sellers in England and sellers in Israel that are all selling in the United States. That's their only sales market. And fair enough, that's where they chose to begin, and they're killing it there. I have other sellers and friends who are like, I only sell in Germany, and that's where it's at for me. Still others may say, you know what, I'm just a Japanese-based business, and that's where I'm at, and I have no intentions of changing that. My point here is that there are many reasons why you start where you start, and that's fine. We're not here to question any of that. What I do want to challenge you at, as you start thinking about this leadership series, is where are you going to find levers of growth? Okay, so you already have a product. So on a tactical level, you say, well, gosh, if I could sell this thing and I could sell it outside of my current market, and for the sake of this discussion, let's just say we're selling in the United States of America. This is the biggest market, the biggest consumer market, at least by aggregate numbers. And we can all argue about, how much the China market or India market is or whatever. But if you're selling online, the US is still the biggest market. Now you say, but I want to sell in more marketplaces. The most obvious answer, are you selling in other channels in that area first? So before you move outside the United States, have you looked at other channels within the United States, or at least within North America? So again, for the sake of discussion, we're selling in the United States for this example, and we would like to expand to Canada and Mexico. And we're already selling on Amazon FBA, so we'll just use the Amazon NARF program, which allows you to sell into Canada, Mexico out of US-based stock. Kind of minimizes your registration requirements and makes it really easy on you. But it's also a shadow of an actual effective marketing program. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the point of today's episode. When you are defining your target markets, you're making decisions about the utilization of that market. So if you just take the easy way with NARF as an example, you're not really hitting that market in the most effective way you could. In fact, you're just kind of throwing it on because it was convenient. And I want you guys to think about the meaningful impact something could have to your business by means of expansion. And, what would it look like if you actually followed through and did the appropriate compliance for Canada and Mexico in this example, and did the appropriate regionalization, or what's better termed localization for language in Mexico, for example, and even Canada, how would that look? And how would your impact to customers be better? And how would they react to that improved experience? Like, are they buying more frequently? Are they happy? All of these questions are, those are strategic level questions. Other strategic things like, hey, we're going to sell in Canada, we better have our packaging right. It has to be in English and French. And golly, if we're going to sell in Mexico, we may as well have Spanish on there. So now you got your package in 3 different languages. And, how does that look? And how does that, impact you? All of these are, by the way, problems that have been solved by others, and you can learn from them. The old R&D method of learning. Everybody who's kept score in the Awesomers world knows that R&D means rip off and duplicate, ladies and gentlemen, not research and development. Why should you reinvent the wheel when everybody else who's come before you has already done so much of the heavy lifting? Now, we say that tongue-in-cheek. We don't actually mean duplicate precisely what they're doing. And in other words, copy your competition. That's idiotic. But we do mean learn and be inspired by what your competition is doing. And you better be aware of what they're doing. And even outside of your competitive landscape, take the best practices of other people who have already solved this problem and let them be part of your solution. They're informing your ultimate solution by this R&D process. Now, my whole point of bringing this up is by establishing where you are now and where your strategic objective tells you need to be in the future, you can decide if advancing into additional geographic markets makes sense. There's a cost to it. There's a time element to it. There's a frustration element to it. And you need to be conscious of these choices and not just do it willy-nilly. Now, the great news is there are lots of wonderful resources to help you expand internationally, both in terms of shipping, which many people are kind of aware of, and customs clearance, right? People are aware of that, right? So there's both the physicality of shipping, but there's also the paperwork of, importing and certificate of origin and, importer of record and those types of points. But also then from outside of the shipping into governmental compliance, like, hey, in Canada, you're going to have to start collecting GST. And what does that mean? And you're also paying it. What does that mean? And how do those things reconcile themselves? So there are great service providers, and you can go over to empowery.com and go to the partner directory there and find some of the international folks, the companies who are dedicated to making that easier for you. And many of these companies have already, like many of them have their own warehouses. Many of them have their own departments that will help you get products in and out of countries. Now, I'll give you another very brief example. But if you are in the United Kingdom, you Brexited, right? You're already aware of this, but for those who are keeping score that may not be aware, once Brexit happened, now the EU has import-export restrictions from the United Kingdom into the EU and vice versa. Things going from the EU into the UK also have similar restrictions and not just customs compliant, but paperwork and other types of things, processes that must be followed. So this goes beyond just VAT, which is already a bit of a pain, and into the practical, how does this work in real life? And all of these companies really are dedicated to making that part of the problem very easy for you. And I think the cost is quite modest, especially if you're going to do a reasonable amount of business. Now, by the way, this part of this lesson, it cannot be ignored. When you are trying to define your geographic targets, not understanding there's a cost to go into each market, a cost of compliance, a cost of packaging, or whatever the costs are. There's laws in Germany, for example, about how your package must be disposed of, and you're going to pay some penalty for that if it's made of certain things. Again, I'm trying to stay out of the tactical level, but the whole point is, if you don't realize that there's a cost to it, this is more than just simply saying, yeah, that sounds good, let's sell the same thing in another market, then you're just not prepared. That's all. And believe me, I've done many things I'm not prepared for. And part of the objective of this series is to prepare you, and so that you don't walk in and get gobsmacked by the amount of new things that you must prepare yourself to deal with. So my whole point here is that you need to be thoughtful about what geography or geographies are necessary for you to obtain and accomplish your strategic objective. Again, for the sake of example, if your strategic objective shows that you're going to, multiply your company by 3 or 4 or 10 times in the next several years, and you're not on your way to doing it, you should take a look if geography will help you versus just adding more products. There's lots of levers that you have in your business. One lever is selling the same stuff in more places, right? Meaning geographies. Another is selling your stuff in more sales channels within the same geography. Another one is just selling more products in the same places you're already selling, right? All of these things are different levers in your business. And so even though these things are often just skimmed over, I know my geography, I'm already selling here, or I tried, the EU a long time ago and it didn't work. Like, I want you to drop all that baggage right now. And I want you to just think about it in terms of your strategic objective, and then come up with a time to review it. Are you satisfied with it, how it is now? And is that establishing you adequately for the future? If not, set a time to review. Maybe that time is a month because it's urgent and you're already midway through it. Or maybe that time is a year, or maybe it's 3 years. Maybe it's never. I don't really care what the answer is. I care that you find out that answer. That's what I'm saying today. So everybody, don't think in terms of the biases that you have. I really encourage you to drop those biases and think of this from a very strategic level and a high management level, and take the time to give yourself, make sure you relearn the things you've already think that you know, and that includes things about geographic targeting of your customers. Thanks again, everybody. I appreciate you. And if you appreciate us, please go subscribe, like, share, notify button. Leave comments too, by the way. I think comments are something that apparently amplify the signal. So let's comment it. Yeah.